a few moments with you here, talking about some of the big stories of the day, kind of get you caught up on what's happened so far, and then kind of set the table for what's going to happen in the next few hours as well.
That's right. We have, as you saw in our graphic before, team coverage, and we've been covering races all throughout the day as we got ready for tonight, and we're not done yet. We have a lot of hours here to go, a lot of results left to come in. The polls in Tennessee close at 8 p.m., but we just wanted to start off in our brand new digital studio and show you what all we're covering tonight.
Yeah, first let's show them the newsroom. Look at all those folks back there working hard.
This is why this is so cool, because breaking news happens, we can run over to our digital studio, go live, talk to you about it as it's happening. We don't.
Hey Jake, what wave to the viewers? What wave to them?
These are our producers back here.
Working hard back there.
Yeah. So let's show you a little bit of what the digital studio can do. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to be able to talk to our live crews in the field. There is Jacqueline.
Hello, Jack.
Jacqueline, you are covering our school board races for tonight. You want to give us kind of a preview of who you've been talking to, what you're seeing, and what we can expect tonight.
Yeah, Latricia, Josh, I'm standing here outside of the Election Commission right now, and it's been a little bit of voters coming in and out sporadically throughout the day. Now, Hamilton County School Board has 6 seats that are currently open, which is kind of weird because that's a lot of seats to be open for a school board. So by the end of this election tonight, it is going to be 2 new people that are possibly going to be sitting in those seats. New parents are going to be seeing those people come in and maybe start to change a little bit of what the school board is going to look like. And those 2 big primary seats are from District 4 and District 7. So District 4 has to do with Jackie Anderson Thompson and Missy Crutchfield. So those 2 women are currently going for the same seat. Now, they have been talking about what their campaign and what this election has kind of looked like. And let's maybe take a little listen into what they've had to say so far on this journey that they've gone through for the votes.
Well, Jacqueline, we don't have those
sound bites
we did earlier. No, that was for our 5 and 6 p.m. We can do that tonight at 8:30 though, because we can have another broadcast coming up.
Okay, then we'll save that for them. So those are the District 4. Now the other seats that are coming up are going to be District 7, which is Jody Schaefer and Ed Garcia. And they were both telling me when I had the chance to talk to them and interview them earlier today, as people were coming in to vote, they were both just talking about how they're hoping that getting in this seat is going to be a new journey for the future of what our schools in Hamilton County is going to look like. And one of them, Ed, is retired. And Jody was telling me that she is a lawyer and that she's got kids in this and she just wants to see a difference and give those children a voice, because children don't have a voice when it comes to it. So it's good to see those different perspectives kind of coming in, and it's something that we're just kind of going to go with and see how it continues.
And whoever wins in those 2 races, almost a completely new makeup of that school board. So different decisions will be made, different opinions heard from some of the things that we've been used to hearing for several years.
That is for sure.
Super interesting, just the idea of, if you remember, right during the pandemic, post-pandemic, there was so much discussion around school boards and how parents aren't getting their voices heard about what they want in schools. And then we heard, about, critical race theory and these kind of ideas, right? There's so much passion and heat around school board meetings across the country, right? And now here we are a few years later, and we're seeing, like you said, 6 of the 8 positions, vacated. And so it is interesting to think about where we've been the last 4 or 5 years and where we are today. And this clearly seems like, at least locally, some changes around, who is choosing to be involved and those who may be choosing to kind of do something else for a while. And so I think it's really interesting to watch and see what the makeup looks like when we're done here tonight, or actually the whole cycle, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely see some new faces to it just after tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see what they bring to the table.
And Jacqueline, you're at a polling location. Again, there's almost an hour left. Have you seen a lot of people still coming in? When was the busiest time that you saw people coming in to vote today?
I would have to say the busiest time was definitely when people got off work. So in between our 5 o'clock and our 6 o'clock shows, you definitely saw more heavy voters coming in. And Ed and Jody were there campaigning still for themselves, trying to see what the votes were going to look like, trying to say, hey, still vote for me if you have that opportunity, you haven't made your decision yet, holding up signs, getting people all over that district to try to vote for them if they possibly could do that. So I'm interested to see what those results are going to be later.
Yeah, we're looking at some numbers now besides you. We are seeing, at least before the voters came out today, when we look at early voting and absentee turnout, the Hamilton County election told us those numbers were down about 31% from the 2020 primaries. But we know there was so much interest and, and lots of hype around that. And then similar drops from 2016 to 2024. So Jacqueline, when those numbers come in, we're going to come back to you. We're going to see again how that race is shaping up.
Well, I'll be here coming back at 8.
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much, Jacqueline. And we did do some coverage in our morning shows this morning. We've been talking about the election all day long. Leslie Dominique talked a little bit about that turnout, and this is what she had to report.
Early voting, those absentee votes as well, those were very low this year in comparison to elections past. So we spoke with the Hamilton County Election Commission about this, as well as local political party leaders. Now, Rachel Campbell, the chair of the Hamilton County Democratic Party, believes the county saw low early voter turnout because the Election Commission limited the availability of early voting locations in certain communities.
They limited the amount of early voting sites, and they made it easier for people in like rural Saudi Daisy and Eastridge to vote, and more difficult for people in the heavily voting districts. Then no, I'm not surprised that early vote turnout is low.
On the Republican end, Mark Harrison, chairman of the Hamilton County Republican Party, sent us a comment saying, quote, Republicans do not historically vote during the early voting phase. This primary, Republicans have voted 3 times more often than members of other parties. I expect that the Republicans will have a good turnout on Super Tuesday, unquote. Now, Scott Allen with the Hamilton County Election Commission says that he's hoping for a better turnout today. He noted that one unique factor about this particular election is that the Republican Party usually has 5 or 6 candidates left by Super Tuesday, so people are usually having to navigate who they want to vote for. But this time, they are down to just 2 options, that being Nikki Haley and former President Donald Trump. And Allen says this may impact the amount of voters coming out. Rachel Campbell, chair of the Hamilton County Democratic Party, says her party is set on President Biden being the nominee. Donald Trump has been majorly leading over Nikki Haley in primaries all over the nation. Mark Harrison with the Hamilton County Republican Party says he does not expect any surprises in Tennessee.
That was from Leslie Dominique this morning as they looked ahead to voter turnout. We do know, Josh, that we have had lots of rain today.
Yes, always a factor. Yeah.
I know, so we can see how that will affect that as well. Now, one big thing we have been talking about today on our 5, 5:30, and 6 newscasts is a new state law that required signs up in precincts for this primary.
Right.
Talking about what primary you were voting in. If you were voting in a primary of a party that you showed allegiance to, and that is creating a lot of confusion.
It's an interesting topic, and we're going to get to a story on that here in a moment, right? About open primaries and what exactly it means to have an open primary. And this is not a new conversation. It's been going on for a long time as far as what are the rules when it comes to open primary. Typically, open primary would mean, right, you could show up on election day and just choose which party you want to vote for. But the state of Tennessee and the lawmakers of Tennessee seem to be trying to hold people accountable to, if you're voting in the Republican primary, that you are, in the language, a bona fide Republican. Now, I don't know that necessarily has been defined very well, what a bona fide Republican actually means, but that's the way they're trying to discuss it, right? So the other option would be a closed primary, right, where you would choose which party you're affiliated with and say, I'm a Republican voter or a Democratic voter or an independent voter, and you would go and you'd vote. Well, we don't have that system in Tennessee, and there's a reason we don't have that system in Tennessee, and that hasn't changed that. And a lot of that, there's a lot of reasons for that, actually. But the biggest thing you're going to have if you have closed primaries is you're going to have the voter turnout be lower, right? If you don't affiliate with either party and you're an independent, you're a moderate, you're, agree with some of the things, but not all the things. And so you're not fully in either party, then in a primary day and you're not affiliated, you don't go vote. So the numbers would be lower. So a smaller part of our population actually gets to make that decision on who votes on that day. So there's a lot of things that go along with it. In Tennessee, we have an open primary system, and that's the way it's been for decades.
That's right. And you can see on your screen there that new sign.
Yeah.
Many of you probably saw this. Maybe you didn't even notice it in your precinct today, but it says it's the law. It is a violation of Tennessee Code Annotated Section 27115B and punishable as a crime under Tennessee Code Annotated of two different sections if a person votes in a political party's primary without being a bona fide member or an affiliated with the political party, or to declare allegiance to that party without the intent to affiliate with that party. Now, as you said, that can be confusing when you go to vote. And that's why we sent News Channel 9's Jordan Karn back out to dig into this sign, to talk about the law, and to talk to voters about it.
Sign makes it look like it's illegal, and perhaps it is, but what does that mean?
Voters across Tennessee, like Nicole McDermott, saw something new when they went to cast their ballot on Super Tuesday.
It seems like there's a lot of fuzziness around what it actually is and whether or not it's enforceable.
Yellow signs reminding them of a state law that's been on the books for more than 50 years. The law says a registered voter is entitled to vote in a primary election if, quote, the voter is a bona fide member of and affiliated with the political party. While the law is old, those signs warning voters of a crime are new, the result of a new state law passed last year.
It is a way to intimidate voters who are not sure about whether they are bona fide members of a political party.
Debbie Gould, president of the League of Women's Voters of Tennessee, says they challenged the new law that requires polling places to post these warning signs. But a judge just dismissed their claim, saying they lack the standing to sue.
This is a real concern that even though it has been on the books before, that suddenly now it will have a more visual impact on voters, and they will be concerned about whether they should participate.
However, there's no mechanism to enforce this law, according to the Hamilton County District Attorney.
I can't imagine a case in which law enforcement or my office would be interested in prosecuting under this statute, mainly because it would just be really difficult to prove.
Lewis Brill, officer of elections for the Riverview voting precinct, says they have not been given guidance on what to do if someone has questions about the new sign.
I would tell them, hold up for 1 second. I'm going to call the election commission, make sure I know exactly what I need to say that is appropriate or that is approved by them, and then I would get back with them on that.
So that story today, looking into that very complicated issue, and a lot of our stories are a minute 30, 2 minutes. It's so hard to get so deep into these really complicated state laws that have been on the books for more than 50 years. And as you heard the DA say, there's no enforcement mechanism.
How do you prove it?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. How do you prove what someone really believes? And I think that's where that comes down. And it's interesting too. We talked about this earlier today, right? Hearing Cody Wamp's thoughts on that when her brother Weston Wamp won the primary in the Republican Party 2 years ago, back in 2022. He finished first. Sabrina Spedley finished second, and she challenged this idea against the state Republican committee, and they had a hearing to see how this would play out. The thought there was that too many Democrats voted for him, but then in the hearing, she admitted that Democrats that she knew personally voted for her as well. And so the state committee had the conversation, the Republican state committee, and what they determined was the law is it is an open primary. And I remember there's a person, John Stanberry, I looked this up today, and he was talking about. He's a member of that state committee, or at least it was at the time, about how he wished the system was different, but this is the system. The system is an open primary. And so with that, how do you determine which votes are legitimate and which votes are not legitimate as far as your views of what a Republican or a Democrat is? And I think it's interesting conversation. And it's also interesting that they're making the extra step of putting up signs when really, like the DA just said, it doesn't change a whole lot as far as actually, what they can and can't do to someone if they think that they're not voting in the right primary. Because as you know, you go to vote, they ask you, what do you want? And you pick one or the other, and that's how it works.
And that's you declaring your party affiliation. But what the DA said today is it would have to be one of those election workers sitting there at the table, 99% of the time doesn't know you as personally, but would have to say this person is saying they're a Democrat or a Republican, but actually they're not.
But how, I mean, even if that person knew you personally and knew what you posted on social media, how would they know if you decided that, you know, I was this and now I'm this, so, or this is what I really feel, or like you said, you get to declare with the open primary system in Tennessee. Every time you go and vote in a primary, that day you get to declare what you want to vote as, a Republican or a Democrat. And so with that said, you get to choose on that moment. So how can someone say that you're not if you say you are? Yep. I mean, it's very legally, it's very complicated as far as how to sort that out. And the answer to be, if the people who really wanted it to be a closed primary just pass those laws, but if they had the support of the state legislature, or if they felt like that the voters in the state would support it, I'm sure we see something different. But at this point, we don't. And so I think that lets us know where that stands.
And right now, actually, a movement in the Tennessee legislature to make the primary lines more clearly drawn in the sand, making you declare. But lots of people have said that's not going to go anywhere. Tennessee's primary system is the way it is, and people don't want to change it, at least through the legislature right now.
Right. You would have to have enough support to do it. And that's the whole thing. It's like, do you have the support among the citizens of the state to do it? And as we talked about the voter turnout, right? Generally on an election day, you're going to get, based on numbers we normally get, somewhere between 20 and 30% of the population anyway, which is not a giant percentage of the population deciding who gets these offices, right? You're going to make that even lower. It's a lot of things to really consider when you think about what direction you want to go there.
That's right.
Yeah.
The cool thing about our digital streaming studio here is what you're looking at beside us is actually a live shot right now from the Hamilton County Election Commission. We've got about 40 minutes until the polls close, but actually at 7:30, they are going to have a meeting. They're going to talk about any issues of the day. Citizens can go and speak up, can say issues that they encountered at the polls today. Interesting to hear if anything about those signs comes up, what that discussion is. And then when we get to the 8 o'clock hour, when the polls close, they'll start bringing those machines in and the information stored on those machines to actually begin some of the counting. And with as many elections that you and I have both covered, we know that the numbers that initially pop up are from absentee ballots and early voting numbers. Those have already been counted in the system, ready to go right at 8 o'clock usually. And then we'll start seeing the different districts and the different polling locations coming in, and those numbers will slowly change as we go throughout the night.
Yep. And we'll be back here doing another one of these at 8:30.
That's right.
And we're live at 10 as always and 11 as always with all the results that we have in that moment. And then there's always some results that aren't all the way in. So make sure to watch us again in the morning to make sure that whatever races weren't quite decided yet, you get the results there as well on GMC in the morning.
Another thing that we want to talk about is something that came into our newsroom not too long ago. It was a story that actually came out yesterday from Kusa County.
Oh, right.
Some people who wanted to run on the Republican ballot there, and then were told that they didn't qualify.
Yep.
So we just got some breaking news in on that. This is our NewsChannel9.com website that I want to pull up and show you, where we just put this update up not long ago. A judge has actually ordered the Kusa County GOP to put those candidates on the ballot, many of them running for commissioner seats, saying they've never had problems running as a Republican before. And then all of a sudden they came to this election, they tried to go and run on that ballot, and they encountered some issues.
And that's the thing that's interesting about, there's a lot of interesting things about this, but one of them is some of the people that were told they couldn't run as Republicans were sitting members of the county commission, right? And so they'd already won seats as Republicans, but now this county group here decided, no, you can't run as a Republican this time. And so similar but different than what we're talking about in Tennessee, but there's someone deciding there whether you are actually what you say you are, and what are the metrics to decide that you are or you're not the thing that you say that you are. And I think that's just probably where we are in national politics right now, where you decide who's real and who's not. But then again, who gets to decide that? Who has the final say as far as that goes? The judge here in this clearly decided that those candidates that were being left out now are going to be on the ballot, and they vote. Early voting is going on now, but the election day there is next week in Georgia.
That's right. And this, we were not able to get a response from the Kusa County Republican Party yesterday. They posted something on their Facebook page just a few hours ago saying that they proudly welcome all county citizens who share their common conservative values and support our Republican principles. The opportunity to run for public office on the Republican ballot is open to all Kusa County Republican residents who are approved by the county committee. Notices are published in the newspaper and details come from the party and the election office. And they're a little vague here about why they specifically didn't let these people run. If you do go down to one part, you can kind of get a hint of this. As in any year, though, approval for the Republican ballot is not automatic, and successful candidates must meet the statutory criteria and complete the party's qualification process, including but not limited to an oath of allegiance. They then go on to say, because it's in court, it's inappropriate to comment on the situation specifically, and they directed us to their attorney. But again, these different candidates in Kusa County saying all we want to do is run. We want to be able to be on the ballot. We want people to be able to voice whether or not they support our candidacy. We don't want to be told by a group of Kusa County Republicans whether or not we can even appear on that ballot.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like what does that exactly mean, right? What does that oath of allegiance mean? What is that criteria they're talking about? What exactly does that mean? And how do you get to decide somebody is and somebody's not? And I think, in this day and age, when like think about 2020, the presidential election and how close that was. Can any party really make a decision there of like, okay, these folks can't be in our party? I mean, because when the margins are that tight, and we know what happened in Georgia with the presidential election, 4 years ago, and so it's kind of like that's an interesting, idea that you're going to decide some folks are not. You're not bona fide. You're not. You don't meet the criteria. You're not part of what we are, and so. We'll see how it all works out on election day. But at this point, the judge has decided those candidates can be on the ballot. So we'll have the results of that next week.
Yep, and we'll keep following that. So let's talk about some of the other things that we are following for tonight. As we look at some people voting today, we are going to be following the district attorney general race. That's in District 10. You have Sherry Taylor as the incumbent there. So we'll be following that. Circuit Court Judge in Hamilton County, Michelle Kaufman against Alex McVeigh. Again, you're seeing zeros there because the polls are not closed. So those numbers still coming in. Here's a look at our team.
These folks are running for nothing.
That's right.
We're just here.
We're not running. We're covering.
We're watching and reporting.
You can see Josh and I, along with Kim and Jacqueline, who you heard from, Jordan, who filed that story from the field about the new signs, and you'll see Kim tonight at 10 and 11. So there's really so much in this election. It may not be the big night for the presidential race. We have a lot of, it's the primary that lots of people know what's going to happen there. There's not a lot of drama there, but locally, really a lot to watch.
That's right. And the thing is, it's not just, Tennessee and Alabama and North Carolina voting tonight. I think it's 16 of the states voting today here on Super Tuesday. So we're watching all these local races, but we're also watching stuff across the country as well. And we'll report on all that as there are big developments other places as well tonight.
That's right. So again, our debut of our News Channel 9 digital studio. We're going to use this in lots of different ways, guys. Election night is just the beginning. Severe weather, come to us right here. We can have David out here showing you the maps as they update, as they happen, and the outside weather conditions. Also, when we have big breaking news around the community, around the region, we can pull our reporters in from the field, have them come live to you in the moment. We don't have to wait for that 5 or 6 or 10 or 11 p.m. newscast. We know you guys get a lot of your news on social media throughout the day, and we want to be here for that as well.
This is way better than my phone and my desk shaking around. So this is better.
Yeah. It's a new way to get news from your trusted people here at News Channel 9.
No doubt.
So we'll be back here in about an hour, 7:30 or 8:30 to 8:45, depending on when we get a lot of numbers in and some of the races start to get called. So join us right here, and we'll see you then.
See you soon. Have a good night.